Action.
All right. Hello. My name is Benjamin War,
I'm Avery Piccioni.
and this is our leadership podcast.
Let's go.
Let's do it. I guess we'll start off with our timelines. I've been in the Leadership Academy since my sophomore year. I joined when Ms. Soprano and Sheehan were in it, and I've been in it ever since. Yeah.
I joined my junior year. Also when Ms. Soprano and Ms. Junior here. And yeah.
So some of the roles I was in my sophomore year, I helped create the freshman mentorship program with Aaron Sullivan. I think Ryan Thompson was in the group, and basically what it was we just went out into freshman homerooms. We got them to this was in the first few months of school, so we got them to know each other. We did egg races, different games, different trivias, stuff like that to get them to know each other and actually talking, to try and decrease the amount of anti-socialization that was happening. Then throughout the rest of my sophomore year, I started the Hendrick and Bayview volleyball tournament, which ended abruptly thereafter due to the people at Bayview. But that event raised over 500 canned goods and over $700 for local food pantry. And then I ended that year off by doing interviews where I actually interviewed Avery Piccioni to get into the Leadership Academy.
Yes. So my junior year, my first year, I was really eager to join the Olympic Day team. Ben Orr is also a pretty big part of that. But I had a less important role junior year because it was mostly run by our good buddy Dan DeLessio.
Danny D.
But I was a big part in planning that, and I ran the clothing drive part of that. So I helped raise over, I want to say it was 400 or 500 individual pieces of clothing, and then we donated that to a local shelter that was in need. I was also part of the Thanksgiving food drive. We raised over 1,000 or so cans and boxes of food, which we donated to local charities and stuff. And I had a couple other minor roles, but those were kind of the main ones, I'd say.
So my junior year, this is when I really started working closely with Dan DeLessio. So basically it started off with Olympic Day, where me and Dan kind of teamed up to do it because he was passing the torch on to me, so I'd be able to do it the next year. So that was a lot of long nights. I helped Dan create the brackets. I did all of the logistics, that stuff. Dan did all of the overview of sports equipment and teaching new members how to do stuff. Then come winter time, I was involved in Clash of the Classes, a brand new event that Dan and Chris Sanders had started. So Dan was also teaching that. We were coming up with new game ideas. We tried some new stuff out, like Hungry Hungry Hippos, a few games to test the waters. Ultimately, as you can see, those didn't work out as well as we thought, so we cut them for the next year. Then then the end of that year, I once again did interviews where I conducted interviews for everybody, all the potential applicants. I sat down with Mr. Sheehan and Ms. Soprano and went through grading rubrics, and I helped determine if kids were eligible to join or not.
I also was part of that last year and this year.
Not this year.
We did Clash of Classes.
There's no interviews.
No, Clash of Classes. And then we did interviews last year as well. That was pretty fun. But now we're going to talk a little bit more about our
senior year.
Skill development. You didn't do anything this year.
My senior year, I ran all of Olympic Day, except it was mostly outside of leadership. That was more at home time. And then, throughout all of this, we've also, our first 2 years, did a lot of public speaking exercises. My personal favorite was the word game, where you just pick a random word out of a hat and you had to talk about it for a minute. And we made a game out of it to where it was two halves of the room. And whichever said less likes, and pauses would get a 10-day. So that was a lot of fun. It incentivized guys to actually want to get up and public speak. And I enjoyed public speaking a lot. I think it helps. I've had to use it in multiple scenarios outside of the academy, and I think those games are what helped me do it.
Yeah. I also want to say, making the senior breakfast last year, I burned my hand. You can't really see it, but that was not a fun time.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk a little bit more about our skill development. I'd say that kind of adding on to what Ben was just talking about with the public speaking games. I came into the Leadership Academy not knowing much about public speaking. I wasn't ever really good at it. I always get nervous, like especially doing like presentations like freshman and sophomore year. Like that was just not something that I was good at. But I think that definitely through projects we did junior and senior year, with just speaking out in front of groups and the different lessons that we learned, I think my development of public speaking has skyrocketed. I'm super comfortable talking in front of groups now, and I don't need like to rehearse what I'm going to say before. It kind of just comes off the dome. So yeah, that was definitely a big skill development. And then also, I'd say I was already pretty good at communication coming in, but if anything, I just like added on to that. I think my communication skills throughout the various projects that we did, especially like Olympic Day, like just my communication has gone way up because those are the times that you need it.
Sorry. No, you're good. Definitely to echo that, mine was more so the biggest thing I had to work on was communication outside of like public speaking, was like communicating with other people in roles that like they didn't know what I wanted, but I had to get that point across. The big example of this would be something I completely forgot to mention in my timeline, would be Catholic Schools Week. So I started that. I mean, obviously I didn't start Catholic Schools Week, but I started making it prominent here at Hendricken. Like before, in my middle school, we celebrated every year. And then I got here and we never did anything for it. So the biggest thing, my favorite part about that week is always Monday when we go out to local elementary schools. But it was me, at that point, a sophomore in high school, reaching out to administration of other schools, and I didn't know how to get taken seriously, so I had to sit down with Miss Soprano and actually go through and learn how to write an email, learn how to send professional emails if I wanted to actually get responses from those people. And I think that was one of the biggest lessons I learned, was actually how to write professional emails, how to talk professionally, and the fact that sometimes you just need to get on the phone. And this was mainly through Bayview. I had to get on the phone and talk to people. I had to call people I wouldn't get answers. So I think that, and I think just planning for every step. Like we had to do with Mr. Sheehan was called backwards planning. That was very helpful actually, from somebody who didn't plan anything coming in. Like learning how to start with a goal and figure out how you're going to accomplish that was very helpful for me.
Yeah. All right. Now touching a little bit more on some of the lessons and the speakers that we had over our years, I'd say that some of the most notable ones. We'll start with lessons and we'll go to speakers. So I think that some of the most notable lessons that I learned was how to write an email. Like Ben was saying, that was huge. How to create a resume. That one was really big because I had no idea, and so going in, but being able to do that now is really going to be very helpful. I'd say learning about like the different types of empathy this year, that was pretty interesting one. And then I think that's pretty good for me.
My favorite lesson's a little bit different. My all-time favorite lesson we ever did at Hendricken was a group project my junior year, in which we were given $30 million and we had to figure out what we wanted to do to make Hendricken better. So it was like an action plan, how we were going to do it. You know, groups had such vastly different ideas, and it was really cool. I mean, obviously it wasn't our plans, but some of those plans got brought to life. I mean, we got to see a few groups pitch an 8-drop-2 schedule that's in actuality now. And then like groups were pitching like buying more seafood, which I know Hendricken's been considering for a while now, and just updates to what different people in different like perspectives think the school needs most. I mean, you have groups of 4 baseball players that said, yeah, we need new athletic fields. Yeah, we need turf baseball field. Then you have guys that were in like the theater and math that were saying we need updates to our theater department. It's cool to see the different perspectives and what everybody thinks is most important to our school. And then my other probably favorite lesson, would probably be how to introduce yourself. Like, I'm always very awkward at networking events. I go up and I say, hi, my name's Ben Warren. That's about it. I let the other person kind of carry the conversation. But when we had a lesson on like what's important, what do you really want people to know about you, I think that was huge. It really showed me like now networking this year, like especially for like mock trial when we were trying to fundraise, I was going out to events. I learned how to actually introduce myself and actually start a conversation, and I'm not relying on other people to carry the weight. So now we're gonna go into speakers. I guess I'll do like my top 3 biggest speakers. Number 1 is that's tough.
Yeah.
It's probably Steve Napolillo, the PC's athletic director. That was my sophomore year, I want to say.
Yeah.
He came in and talked all about networks, and that's a really big thing for me. He came in and told us pretty much everything you do in life is going to be through a network. Like, you have to establish those connections early. And he told us how he taps into that network. On Sunday, he said he just scrolls through his contacts, clicks a random person, and has a conversation with them. He likes to keep that network up to date because it's gotten him as far as it has in life, and he believes it's going to continue him further. That's my top 1. Let's go.
That was your number 1?
That's my number 1.
All right, for starting with number 1, I'm going to say my favorite was, I think it was last year. It was the guy who I'm blanking on his name, but he went to URI and he started that like
the water company.
The water company.
Yeah. I don't remember his name either.
It was like he started like this water company at URI, and they like did like effects with water at like concerts, and he grew it to like multi-million-dollar company, and he's like super rich now. And I think that was just a really cool story of someone who didn't have much and just took an idea and profited as much what he could off of it. And he is also now does Serve now, I believe.
Yes,
which is like Pat Brown.
Pat Brown's his name. Yeah.
He does Serve, which is like a company, but that's part of it. And I thought that was just really cool to see how like one little idea can just skyrocket off of just connections in marketing.
My second favorite, I would say, I'm pretty sure her name was June Young. Were you here for that one? June Young. So basically she was a high up at CVS, but before that she was telling us about how she worked at this company out in Washington. And it was her first day hired. She had gotten poached from another company she was at, and they brought her to a factory to see what was going on. But when she got there, I guess there was this problem at the factory, and she had to determine whether or not it was best to shut the factory down, which would lose the company a lot of money for like shutting it down even for one day, or keep the factory open despite like what was happening. So she walked us through how she made that decision, and it was really cool. And that was like the biggest speaker we've had, I guess, that dealt with critical thinking. And it was also pretty cool. Like, she didn't think that we were going to answer questions, so she brought candy bars for whoever answered questions. So that was pretty fire. But yeah, she was the biggest critical thinking. She taught us her steps, how she does problem solving, like analyzing the situations, like actually looking at what you have and using your knowledge from past experiences to actually establish what the best steps are going forward.
All right, I'd say number 2. I'm again really bad with names. That's probably something I got to work on. But the guy, I think it was this year. It was definitely this year. It was the guy who was the wealth management guy. I don't know the name, but he was coming in and he talked about how he got to where he was and just all the relationships he has with other people. And I thought his message was really cool.
Is it Tom Harkins?
No,
Mr. Harkins?
No, not Mr. Harkins. But he interacted with us really well, and he talked about like why he loves his job, and I thought that part was really cool because he said he likes his job because he makes good money, which is pretty important in today's world, and 2, he gets to help people while doing it, so he feels good about himself while also making money. So I thought that was really cool, and he also has time for his family, gets to make his own schedule. So I think that message, just being able to do that with your life, is so cool and something I would definitely want to do. So I think it definitely inspired me to try and follow a career where I can help people and also make time for my family, which is a big goal of mine.
I tried to look up the name of the next speaker, and it just did not come up. We had somebody come in from the Special Olympics. I believe it was the speaker that did it, but it's the message that's more important. I believe it was a speaker from the Special Olympics, and they said, "Find your why." Was that who that was? I don't remember what speaker it was, but one speaker came in, and their whole message was "Find your why." It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter how you're doing it. It matters.
I thought that was the guy that was cleaning the fish tanks.
It might have been it was somebody, yeah. But the message, like one of my biggest points that I took away was to find your why. If you know why you're doing what you're doing, then you're going to be 10 times more successful than anybody else in that field that does it. And like the biggest thing from him was that, but he also spoke about like being able to lean on the people around you and trust what they say, because to be honest, what you want to do is surround yourself with experts in the field. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room on every single topic, because that leads you to failure. You want to be surrounded by experts in their fields who also know their why, and that's what's driven him to build. I thought it was Special Olympics, but now that he says it was the fish tank guy, it might be the fish tank guy. But whoever it was, it led them to build either a successful company, it led them to lead a successful nonprofit. It was finding the why and why they did it.
And then I'd say my third, just to finish off real quick, was the guy, again, really bad at names, but the guy who he opened charter schools in Worcester, and he did it in Rhode Island now, and he's just opening, and he's like a big into like the charter school thing. That really hit home with me because I went to a charter school, and I got to meet with a lot of less fortunate kids and I got to see like what it was like. So being able to like share those, or to be able to relate with him and see why he did those things, was just really awesome. And I thought his message was great, just about giving kids the chance to be able to have that higher education and not have to worry about the income side of things. So that was pretty cool.
Okay, do you want to do your challenge first, or do you want me to do my challenge first?
Biggest challenge.
I've got one off the dome.
If you got one off the dome, you go.
My biggest challenge, his name was Mrs. Pate. She is an admin at Bayview. Mm-hmm. So it was my sophomore year. It was my first time ever leading a group. And I was given a contact at Bayview. And they were like, they're interested in doing something with Hendricken. What do you want to do? And I was like, oh, volleyball. I love volleyball. Let's do a tournament. It's that time. I know Bayview loves volleyball. At the time, they had just won the D2 championship. So I was like, let's run a little volleyball tournament. They gave me the contact, Miss Pate. I email her in December for an event that's going to come up in, I was planning on February, March, but plenty of time. No response all throughout December. I'm like, all right, what's going on? I follow up with an email December, the week before we leave school. It was like, it was the week before. So I emailed her the first week of December, emailed her the week before we left school. Got no response. Come back in January, still no response. January 3rd, I send her an email, still no response. I go to Miss Soprano. I'm like, Miss Soprano, I don't think this lady is going to respond to me. I don't know what to do. So Miss Soprano sends her an email. She responds within 2 days. I was like, well, Miss Soprano, I can't do anything. So Miss Soprano explicitly told her in her email, you have to respond to Ben War. He's the one planning this. It's not me. So Miss Pate finally obliged, but she still continued to take 2 weeks to respond to my emails, and that was incredibly hindering to this process. So eventually we get on a call and we sort everything out. But I was getting just so incredibly frustrated at the lack of communication. What it taught me is that I never want to be the person that somebody else is waiting on to respond. I now check my emails twice a day, once in the morning, once before I sign out for the day. I never want to be somebody who they're waiting on a response from. I want to make sure everybody is able to do their job effectively, and it's not my fault that they're not. And I'd say that's the biggest growth that I've come in. Because before this, I'd look at my phone and be like, oh, I have 100 unread texts. Like, I'm going to leave it. Now it's like I want to be as prompt as possible.
I don't think I had any really bad challenges like that where people weren't getting back to me or communication wise. I know this is gonna sound funny, but I'd say my biggest challenge is probably book club. I hate reading. It's not my cup of tea, but I had to persevere and push through. There's gonna be times in life where, especially in leadership roles, where you really don't want to do something and you just gotta push through and do it because it's for the greater good, as they say. How funny would it be if this isn't recording?
I was gonna say, I think we're running on 15 minutes here, so we're on to our last few things. We're gonna combine goals and legacy.
All right.
So you want to go? All right. So my goal and aspiration. My goal is to become a lawyer. I mean, at the end of the day, that is my goal. I want to be able to help people that can't help themselves. I want to start off as a public defender, helping everybody I can. How I've gotten to that, or my 3 specific leadership goals that will get me there, is I want to get involved. In college, I want to get involved. I want to make a network for myself. I want to be somebody that other people know throughout campus, throughout town. I want to get involved in internships, stuff like that. Being involved is the biggest thing. And I don't want to only be involved and be in the background. I want to be involved and be a prominent person in those clubs and organizations that I'm involved in. And then I think that also goes to my legacy at Hedgerkin. I've been involved in a lot of things. I mean, I had probably one of the best role models in Dan DeLessio when I started off at the Leadership Academy. I eventually just learned to follow him, and I think I built a legacy of my own. I mean, through mock trial, won our school's first ever thing. I mean, Olympic Day, stuff like that, like where
Showing up to Leadership Academy on time every day.
Hey man, I was there. I don't know about you. I was there every day. Yeah, and I think my legacy will be as somebody that was involved throughout extracurriculars, throughout sports. Yeah, I think that'll be mine.
All right. I'd say we're just doing goals and aspiration.
I did goal, aspiration, and legacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'd say my goals for the future, obviously going to college, which is pretty awesome. I'm excited for that. And then after that, I want to become a successful businessman, especially in like the sales side of things. I really love talking to people, so I hope that I can follow up with a career in that. And then one day, I really hope to own my own business. I think that would be just a cool thing, and have people be able to look up to me and be like, "Wow, I want to be like that guy one day." That's one of the things that I've always wanted to do. And also, this is more or less about the leadership side of things, but also I want to own a not own a family. Wow. I want to
That's a bad
have a
look.
family. No, I want to have a family. Sorry. I want to have a family and be able to be someone's role model, just like my dad was my role model for me. I think that's pretty, yeah.
That's sweet.
I want to be able to do that. And then legacy, I think that I hope that I left a legacy of where people look up to me as, like Ben was saying, as someone who was an important founding member of this academy, as it is still pretty new. And yeah, I think it was a good ride.
I'm gonna pray to God that this has been recording.
Yeah, let's hope.
We're gonna find out.
Let's see.
It's been a pleasure. I'm still Ben War.
Avery, thank you, Leadership Academy.
Thank you, Leadership Academy.